two things because all the three questions around exploration and what the NBC is doing about exploration, and the cost reduction and what we are doing, the fact that oil price is coming up. It's all to do with the fact that we are turning around the industry. You recall that in the last 10 years, or even I can say 18 years, oil price went up from $9.50 in 1999 to $148 per barrel by 2008. But now we are struggling with $50 per barrel oil price for some time. And when that notice came in 2014, it was very clear from every angle of the world that this low oil price will be here for long. So don't ever think that this $50 we're getting now is enough to recover and start negotiating price up. I think we have not come down to the price that we need in terms of cost in this country. If you remember the speech, the deputy says the oil average cost of production in Nigeria was about $70 per barrel. The oil price was $28 last year by now. The INP last year was $28 per barrel. At that time, the cost was still around $30 per barrel. So if you produce anything, even if it's a at price, at a cost higher than the price, you know you're losing money. But oil is different from other resources. If you produce oil anywhere in the world, the first thing you will do to the government of that country or the producing state is to pay royalty. And that royalty is whether you're losing the money or whether you're producing the oil at high price, you must pay. Because that's the rent. It's just like house rent. So the key issue is that we must continuously look for ways to reduce cost. We have started, but we're not reaching the level that we can actually sit down and start thinking of going on. So like my boss says, please let us also look inward and see what we can do. As Nigerians, as Nigerian companies do, as well, work towards reduction of cost. Just like IOCs and the NPC go to you to discuss and negotiate cost down, you also go to the other suppliers. And in fact, the entire country is looking that way. We must look inward, we must do made in Nigerian goods, we must ensure that in fact, the key issue that you are letting here is the operation. Many companies were asked to step down because we have code of control with them. And code of control is not necessary. It's only when you need it. Many of the things we're trying to do now is to ensure that every indigenous company is active. Because we have a lot of people working. And any company that is to be dropped means the workers working there must be dropped. So we are also conscious of that. But key issue that we cannot produce at a price higher than the price, at a cost higher than the price of oil. And in fact, we must start thinking of produce at a maximum of not more than 30-40% of the price of oil. So if that is a good benchmark, I think we are now talking. But in terms of what NBC is doing on the exploration, when we say repensing exploration, it means even though we are working in a commercial framework with all our partners, all the TV operators and PSC contractors, we also are conscious of the fact that we need to have the reserves that we need to continuously produce, because we don't want to stop producing oil in the next 20 years. To do that, we consciously also meet and discuss and agree that at every level we must make sure we put production, we put exploration in the budget. Because ideally what people will do when the oil price is low and the cost is high is to forget about exploration because it's something for the future. But to ensure that you replace the reserve is also part of every EIP company. Because to be alive means you must actually explore and get more. So that is to be done, and we have done a lot in the last 1 year. Most of the offshore vessels that we use for the data acquisition, we really try to engage them, and we are doing a lot in Agbani, in Era, in Bonga, and all these are all actively engaging exploration companies that are acquiring data today. But also using the opportunity of this oil price to have this lower cost and encourage our contractors and partners to ensure that we continue to explore. So if you look at exploration activities from last year, it's even more than what we did during the high oil price. And that's what the NPC is doing to ensure that we continue to explore. And we have seen that result not only in the oil but in the gas. In fact, one thing that is still being said in Nigeria is that we never consciously went out to look for gas. All the gas we have after about 200 TCF now had been out of oil exploration. look for gas because the potential is there to have 600 trillion cubic feet of gas in Nigeria, and we're going out to look for that. So that is also going on. Not only that, even on this divested asset that our indigenous companies have acquired recently, Nations, NNPC, and the partners are working together to actually get additional data so that we can explore and get more results. Because again, those resources were acquired when the oil price was high. They got a lot of money to borrow to build this asset. If we don't have sustainable production from those assets, we may not be able to recover your money. So that's what we're doing to ensure that we sustain the exploration. A lot of activities are going on in oil 55, 681, 83, as well as the deep ocean, like I mentioned. Thank you very much.
So you have the top brass of NNPC on point that we're talking about gas. The first of two questions I have is, when will the gas PSC terms finally be released? We know it's been in evaluation and a lot has been going on throughout last year. We anticipated that it will come out before the end of the year, but we're still waiting, and we're at the end of February now. That is one. The second is something also just as profound. It's now an open secret that the 2005 and 2007 PSC terms are the most stringent and also most highly skewed towards government. And this is generally considered a disincentive for investors, and the evidence is clear. You can ask or review how many blocks have come into production from the 2005 and 2007 bid rounds. We can also ask and see how many IOCs, whether here or from abroad, have farmed into those assets. Thank you.
My name is Yomi from Cyber Channels Television. I just want to find out if the country or the government presently is thinking about moving away from oil and developing other areas of the economy. Why do we need to find more and produce more? And based on the background that even some other countries of the world, they're looking away to alternative to oil, why do we need to find more and produce more? Thank you.
My name is Shoyode. I worked for Chief Aret, so I'm retired. I know he stood for truth and clarity, and I want to take advantage of Sayyid Muhammad being here to seek some clarifications of certain pronouncements coming from NNPC or rather from the minister. Also, my colleague Dr. John is here, and Chief Oego. The first one is on this cash flow. Why does government have to get involved in cash flow at all? Government is already making about 80-85% in tax without cash flow. Why not just open up the field and let all money operators come bring their money and buy them and pay you your tax? I'm not talking of NPDC. NPDC, of course, can operate just like other operators. Why must NNPC worry about finding cash flow to join venture partners? That's number one. Number two, why must NPDC or NPC insist on being operator in divested fields? Why not let the marginal and the indigenous operator operate those assets? That's it. And the third one, which is my own area, refining. NPC, or the minister said by 2019, all the 3 refineries will be working and maybe even exporting. And Osaidu is a chemical engineer and used to be the MD of the refinery. I want to, first of all, do you have the money? Or what do you propose to do to rehabilitate those refineries? And do you have money to carry out this? Because it is really, NNPC should not be making promises which NNPC cannot fulfill. I will stop there for now. Thank you.
Yes, and okay.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Stella Krager. I used to be an NNPC personnel, and I still feel I'm a stakeholder in NNPC as well as a stakeholder in Nigeria. This, I want to commend distinguished lecturer and the MD in absentia for this beautiful presentation, because you did a thorough job of touching every aspect of it. But my worry goes in line with what the engineer Shiyode just said. But my worry is the funding of all of these grandiose ideas. If you were going to find the cost, capital intensity of the industry makes one tremble. Because you know, and we all know, when the budget comes out, and even when it goes into the press, NNPC gets this. What you get is actually minimal compared with what we need to revamp the NNPC facilities, the assets that we have. Like the refineries that we've been talking about. We were all waiting for that day when the refineries will go. I worked at the refinery as the EDS when I was retiring, and I know what the worries that worry had. So I know that it's just one of the problems that we have, and GMB, I do sympathize with you, because I know that you're carrying a lot of weight. But in talking about the funding, I want to know what you are doing. So what kind of synergy do you have with the oil industry, with the joint JV partners? Because in the midst of the economic situation we are in, a lot of them are groaning. Because if you talk of the foreign exchange aspect of it, they have to operate, you have to operate. In this situation, how are you going about getting yourself out of this quagmire? I'm looking at also at the political angle. I know that over the years, NNPC has had a problem with working with the political class. And we cannot shy away from that. What kind of synergy, what kind of strategies have you now started adopting so that we can, when you present your budget, they're not going to send you backwards and forth. And over the years, I remember that suddenly, in the papers we used to read, suddenly they have summoned all the executive members of NNPC to the Senate to come and defend themselves over one or two things. What kind of strategies have you put in place? What kind of political friendliness, in quotes, have you adopted so that by the time you want to put forward these grandiose ideas, this financial aspect especially, you will have sympathy. And you'll be able to carry out, they'll be able to give you the support that you need, the finance that you need. Even the petroleum bill is still dancing here and nobody knows what's happening to that again. So I'm worried because you are doing a lot of work. We have some of the best personnel in NNPC. We've always had. But the support, the wherewithal to do the work. For example, you are talking about technology. How much funding have you got to train your staff? And to be able to acquire the equipment that you need. It's all capital intensive. How are we going to do this? Because we don't want to have all these beautiful promises. In another few years, we get the promises again. Not because you don't have the capabilities, but because it is just not possible. Please help us. Help me to understand.
All the distinguished members of the high table. I think Joe raised a fundamental question. Oh, my name is Sana Anthony, another NNPC retiree. he raised the issue of the PSA gas tunnels, and in posing this question, I'm looking at Rabi. In that it's not just the PSA gas tunnels. Where are we on the fiscal regime, both for the PSCs, which we should have reviewed and put into place about a decade ago, and the fiscal regime generally, because it was the lack of clarity on what we're going to do with the fiscal regime that has led to a situation that the investors drew back. Consequently, if we're talking of finding more, producing more, we need, as at yesterday, to have done something about the fiscal regime. It's either we're retaining what we have, or if we're not retaining what we have, we're putting into place a fiscal regime that will encourage people to invest in the various segments of the industry, and especially the deep water, because if we're talking of 1 billion barrels, adding on 1 billion barrels per year, I think we need to look, at the PSCs and the deep water, where you have the big fields, rather than shallow water. So I look at Rabi because I knew that Rabi has done a lot of work on this, and that's why I'm glad you're here this afternoon. By the way, acting GMB, as usual, the lecture is short and sweet. Typical of you, extremely efficient. Well done.
Everybody, I'd like to stand on existing protocols. My name is Mrs. Aka. I am immediate past legal advisor of the DPR. I think it's fun, and there's this boldness you have when you've left the system. If not, I've been queried for asking my bosses questions when I was in the system, but I have this freedom and boldness to ask my bosses the questions now, my former bosses. I know everybody on the panel. My main concern, I want to talk a little bit on the refineries. While I was there, we gave out a lot of licenses for refineries, and I'm talking about 15 years ago, if not more. It is very disheartening that we're not able to pursue that dream. And many of the companies that we talked to and that we actually gave those licenses for, their main problem was that the government could not guarantee crude oil to them. And I find it difficult because now we're actually exporting that crude oil, having it refined and bringing it back. Those companies at that time were eager and willing to pay the price in dollars. And I'm a lawyer by profession. I know that it is cheaper, far, far cheaper, for you to give that crude oil from Nigeria to a Nigerian company, resident in Nigeria, to refine and sell to Nigerians in Nigeria. And up till now, I can't even answer my children ask me questions, my friends ask me questions, and I can't explain to them why up till now we have not been able to give that crude oil, even if it's a percentage of the crude oil that Nigeria produces, to Nigerian companies who actually can. I know many of them can produce that petroleum products. If we had that in place, there's no way we would be importing the amount of petroleum products that we're importing now. Maybe, I believe, benefiting to some people, but what about the Nigerians as a whole? I know also that the Port Harcourt refinery is having problems, even getting the crude oil allocated to them to refine. Thank you. I want to stop here.
I'm the Board of Trustees of the Aret Foundation. I'm also an entrepreneur. I am delighted. Charles Osezua, engineer, a gas engineer, if you want more. But specifically, my question is considering the lecture and the ambitious plan, 1 billion barrels a year, with, I'll say, incremental gas production, and all the ambitious infrastructural projects, I ask myself, where is the capacity? Because in our, I also heard what Befun said, the effort to reduce costs. talking to a number of the IOC, our competitiveness in the local content space is always a question. So two questions for you, please. I know you protested, but I'm going to ask them all the same. How do we ensure that the local content providers are more competitive, including myself? I recall vividly, starting out in business several years ago, Shell had a program for training Nigeria would-be service providers on how to do business with Shell and how to ensure, if you like, processes that made them more efficient and consequently to become more preferred and beneficial to both Shell and the would-be service provider. 2, our cost of production today is comparatively high. When you put Nigeria on a global scale, we are seen as not competitive. Is there any way to engage the Petroleum Development Trust Fund and or even the Local Content Board to have programs that specifically address the issue of training and empowerment of Nigerians and Nigerian companies so that we have a pool that makes us more competitive? Thank you.
My name is Anthony Ogobi. I'm one of, if I can actually monopolize it, I think I'm a major or beneficiary of the personality of Chief Aret Adams. And I'm really very delighted. I work for Mutual Benefit Assurance PLC. Like I said, I'm one of the real wealth that Aret created. Mutual Benefit today, 21 years down the line, employs over 5,000 Nigerians, and we are working stronger, and we're a very good ambassador of the nation, at least in the West African coast. We have operations in Liberia, Cameroon, and Niger, and that is what Aret started some 22 years ago. And each time I look at this picture, please don't take this picture. I have something very, very I'm passionate about. The jacket is putting on is my jacket. So please don't change it. Keep using it. I have 2 questions. Find more, produce more. What support is NNPC or the federal government giving to the many of the licensed marginal field operators? We know the numerous opportunities that they present, both in increasing the crude and the gas, which NNPC just said have a policy on ensuring that we can derive all the benefits. How many were these licensed operators? Have you carried out any study or appraisal of what they are able to achieve? I happen to be involved in one. I know all the challenges we are facing. If Greg talks for the shipowners, local shipowners association, and talking about cost, if anything says the average cost is $30 per barrel in terms of cost, you can imagine the impact that will have on the marginal field operators where the quantity is really not economical. When they asked the question, I looked at myself and said, are we in the same boat? Because if marginal field operators has to produce and have to compete, and we're going to be using the benchmark, the cost benchmark of NNPC in dealing with these people, I don't think we are, or marginal field operators, I don't think whether they're part of your plans. That's question number 1. Question 2. The beautiful lady from Napoli, she was retired from Napoli, talking to her bosses now, former bosses. DPR, okay. DPR. She mentioned the issue of refineries. Apart from we're working on one now, and the big question we've been asking ourselves, we have, Chiwoyibo is there on the high table, we've identified, we have invested in land, location, and everything. We have identified a refinery to bring in. We've had we are creating all the necessary requirements putting in place. The big question is that question. At what point do we get commitment of government or NNPC in terms of appraising the capacity we are putting in place and giving us guaranteed crude allocation? That is a big question. We have people who want to invest, who have money, who want to take the risk, but we're 100% dependent on government. Again, on refineries, I'm aware we have about 2, 3, 4, I don't know, refineries in Nigeria. These were designed by Nigerians. They were installed by Nigerians. And even the management of the point were equally by Nigerians. Some of them are sitting by the side. The engineers who did everything. Yet, we cannot get these refineries working. What exactly is the problem? We need to be very honest with ourselves where in our present situation in Nigeria. Thank you.
To do with the PSC terms and the fiscal terms, even though it's on NPC, it's a ministry affair, it's a regulator's issue. But then we have always been working with them. And I will pack all those questions to you for review. About 1, 2, 3, 4 questions centered all around refinery. Let me start with the simplest question first of all, from China's television. Why are we looking for more? We need to look for more so that we can diversify. We still need money to go into those sectors. Those sectors of the economy have been neglected for a long time. And you have no any other source of oil except the oil. Sustain the production of oil and build up on the value additions to produce the fertilizers. Before you know it, the agricultural sector will be booming. And so are the industries. Sustain the oil and gas to maintain reliable and sustainable source of energy, and the industries will be running. So, Channels Television, we still need to find more, but most importantly, produce more, so that we can go away from the oil. The refineries, one simple question, which my boss reminded me here. Japan has no oil. They have multiple refineries. Who guarantees the good oil to those refineries? Why do people always come to Nigeria and ask government to guarantee? Even the refineries built by government, the good oil to those refineries is no longer guaranteed. We pay the national price for the good oil that we refine. And I'm glad I show you this here. He's part of building a refinery. And I don't think there is any government guarantee to the Dangote refinery that will soon come. Why those licenses fail, we don't know. But I can assure you that most of them are looking for government share. Why should government be the one to be sacrificing all the time? There are countries who have no oil but have multiple refineries. I mentioned one, Singapore is another. How do they get that good oil? The earlier we woke up and deal with opportunities that they are supposed to be in the commercial sense of buying your inputs, control all the values, chain management, from supply of the feedstock to the sale of the product, is better for us. And that is the trend, and that's where we are heading to. And that is why we have always identified that government cannot continue, not even to sustain the existing refineries, let alone build a new refinery. What we are doing today is to make sure that what has happened or what we didn't do in the past that made us to be in this stage are corrected. There was a time Dr. John is here, and indeed I showed you this here. We exported petroleum products from Port Harcourt refinery. You know that the refineries never worked. They worked. But whatever was responsible is not the following. What are we doing today? What we are doing today is to at least bring them to a level where they can even attract people to come in and put their money. Either put the money in directly into refineries today, or build new ones, cohabiting with the existing refineries. And I must say that the path is yielding fruits already. We don't want to make noise about it, but for the past 1 month, we have been consistently loading from our refineries. About 5 million to 6 million liters of PMS, 6 to 7 million liters of AGU. As I speak today, it's being loaded out of these refineries. The refineries are not, you know that they don't work, they work. But what we are trying to do now is to see how can we sustain them. There are 3 areas. 2 of them may not have anything to do with the refinery itself. Crude oil supply. No refinery can survive that crude oil. So the happenings of the pipelines also affect the crude oil supply to the refineries. Our refineries are not units that you just keep shut down and think that you wake up and bring out the key and start. Anytime you shut any unit of the refinery to bring it back is a big issue. So what we are trying to do now is to sustain crude oil supply to ensure that at least that minimum of 60% operating level is achieved. And thereafter, of course, rehabilitation of the refineries. Rehabilitation can be done for those we can afford within our budget, but most especially we have already identified the scope of works that need to be done in those refineries, and we are already talking to best people suited for that kind of work going forward. And those are no other than OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, including the ORBs, the original refinery builders. That's the path we have designed to exit the import. But I can assure you that even if those refineries come back to their nameplate, we still have to import. So when we say we exit the importation, we also have in mind the new refinery that is being built in Nigeria. So in a nutshell, that is the journey we have earmarked for ourselves, and we are not waiting for government to fund us. Some, like I said, will be done within the operating budget of the NPC. Others we will look for investors in one way or the other. We are not looking for loans. We are looking for people who will come and partner and add value to the units and get their money back through the production that comes out of those units. That's the direction. In general, they also touch on why are we insisting to operate. MPDC, I don't think they insist to operate any field. There are fields where we are partners and we are not the operators. But I will allow Rabi to touch on that. But basically, we don't insist. Where somebody else is operating, we will. But where we find that partner is not operating well, of course, we cannot just sit down and be looking. We can go into an arrangement of an operating management system that will allow the 2 of us handle the steering wheel. The most important thing is to make sure that we come out successfully and we produce the barrel at the cheapest or at the lowest cost that we can. Of course, somebody talked about, I think it's a Kraga, how are we managing our relationships. You cannot run away from managing the relationships of your stakeholders, particularly government, who owns you. And of course, the National Assembly is also there. But one thing I would say that we are getting more and more enlightened to the extent that we are getting more and more legislators who are backing us to make sure that we need whatever we need to get back to where we were or where we are aspiring to. We have it. And that is why the engagements today with the National Assembly, I can assure you, is very, very cordial in the sense that we are all on the same page. We are aligned as to whatever program. Any program that we have, we first of all subject it to the critics of the National Assembly before we go forward. And you may be surprised that a lot of the critics that we get really enable us to move forward in the way that is most So yes, we are managing, but the intention is not to continue to be reliant on government, like I said earlier. So as we exit the participation of government, we also exit some of the stakeholder issues that we need to manage that comes with this. Yeah, PSC fiscal stance, deep water in particular, driving down the costs. Like I said earlier, Charles, building capacity is not where we started. In fact, that lack of local capacity that drove NNPC to establish the local content units, NNPC. Yes, an ordinary department. And the problem metamorphosed into a division. And later we got government buy-in to upgrade it to what it is today. So I can assure you what the NNPC will do really is to work with such agencies, in particular the Nigerian Content Development Management Board and the other relevant agencies like the you mentioned corporation just escaped my mind now. Trust fund, the petroleum trust fund, to see how we can use such agencies to build the capacity of not only the individuals but also entrepreneurs. But certainly, the journey that we have earmarked for ourselves cannot be done without building capacity of the entrepreneurs, the local ones, because that's the only way you can remain relevant and also take over what belongs to you and get in charge of the production of whatever you are embarking upon in the vast resources of this nation. So capacity building of the local content is key, and that will also now drive us to making sure that we drive the cost of production down. And to my marginal field operators, driving the cost down will really be beneficial to you, because as we drive the cost down, and of course the focus shows that price of oil will be increasing. Certainly, that will bring you up to the competitive level. But then if there are discussions that we can have on specific issues.
Thank you, boss. I will start with the clarity for three questions that Oga asked. One is on cash flow, and the question was, why should government be involved in cash flows? Well, people have different reasons or meaning to cash flow. But cash flow simply means your equity in an investment. So what we tried to do in the last 1 year when we came in was the fact that we found a situation where an industry that had been producing oil and gas with substantial government interest had not been paying its own equity in the joint ventures. And the simple reason was that we happen to be in business where we have different objectives. What the government objective was just to maximize what they get and share every month for every state to share and pay salaries and other things. The company's interest is to maximize value to the shareholders. And what we tried to do was say, look, let us look at the entire thing as a business. Like you said, government still has royalty to take and PPT to be paid to them. The only thing that they need to do is to ensure that the investor is properly incentivized and can operate in that environment or in this environment such that he is prepared to put his dollar in Nigeria instead of Angola or in Brazil or other places. And they pay that if they can do that, at the end of the day, what the government will get as royalty should be adequate. So the reason why government wanted to continue investing is because they wanted to share in the profit. And if you do a simple calculation of the $30 oil cost, $50 oil price, out of that $20 that you are getting as the cost less, the price less cost, that is the economic rate out of that one, government gets more. And at the end of the day, the only thing that is out of that $50, if you divide it into 5, the cost of the production, the royalty attached to it, the tax attached to it, the last one is the profit. In that profit, if government has no investment, it has zero profit. if the profit is about $4 per barrel, with 60% investment get $2.50. But that investment is useless if you cannot do it at the right time and deliver and produce the oil. So the thing that we have been doing from around end of 2015 to December, that we signed the agreement, was to try and solve all the three problems at the same time. One, solve the entire issue of the cash call funding scheme and provide a sustainable structural funding scheme that will sustain the business. And to do that is just to allow NPC and the companies to be self-funded. Let the oil you produce be used to fund the business, and then let the government get both the royalty and PBT from both the IOCs, the companies that produce the oil on their shareholders behalf, and NPC that is doing on behalf of government. Which means let the cash flow people, let the funding of the business be the first line charge. And that discussion took a long time, but at the end of the day, this is the first time in 30 years since we signed the JOA that government had the political will and had the courage to allow NBC to do that. So as we speak, we have excess cash flow. There are no cash flow payments from government from January 1st this year. And at the same time, this year alone, after looking at the entire joint venture and what we are doing in the PSC, if you look at the total production in the country, almost half is coming from PSC. But the total government take from PSC is just about 17%. Because, again, there's no investment of government. And the cost of producing PSC oil is also high. So, if you look at it from that angle, you see that even with all this that we're doing, the plan of the industry at $50 oil price is to deliver at least $12 billion for government this year. So we plan that every month they can still share what they're sharing every month in Abuja at least $1 billion. This month of January, I'm sure the allocation has been done and they will share the money. We have assured them, and I think they've already gotten at least, I think 83% of $1 billion this month, and there's no cash flow. So the key issue is that we are actually moving to that because the government summoned the courage to look at it as a business. If at the end of the year you make money, I will see it. If you don't make money, I will see the loss, and I can now know what to do with the company because it is just no different from any other company. So NNPC and IOCs have now committed themselves to produce, invest in that business, and that has also opened up the industry to external funding. So now we have alternative funding and external financiers who are ready to put their money because they know they have access to the oil that can be used to get them back. From last year to this year, we're going to $3.5 billion funding from outside government and outside the IOC too. So myself and Chevron will sit down with bankers, agree on a particular development plan, we develop the plan, we produce the oil, and we pay them and pay government the taxes and royalties. What we assured government was that at any time, they will never have any loss out of what they are supposed to get in terms of royalty and PPT. So that has assured the government and has assured our investors that you can do without government funding. The second part that we saw was the areas of cash flow. Again, we didn't understand, look, the country is under recession. We cannot, in a situation whereby we could not pay cash call from 2002 to 2015, and we have got more than $8 billion and paid cash call to direct or to ask me to pay that money in 2 years or 1 year. If you do that, you're not fair to government. But we've been together from 1973 to 8. So what do we do to solve our problem? They also agree that if that political will is there to exit cash call and allow us to operate well without interference from the government, we are ready to allow you to pay us in 5 years. Not only that, we are ready to get that payment with incremental production so that we can be encouraged to produce more and ensure government gets what they are getting today. Not only that, we are also ready to accept what you are saying, that we are not going to be charging you interest in this delay payment because we are also part of the problem. So that's all those things have been done. We are now ready to pay about $5 billion instead of that $8 billion because we agreed on the total budget to be paid. We'll also pay them in 5 years for incremental production without any interest. That has also put them in the same line as us. We are not thinking the same direction, we are not looking at the same balance and looking at the same profitability. And that is where we're heading as far as the new cash flow exit is concerned. The second issue is why should NPDC insist on being operators? I think this is a very simple question. NPDC was created in 1988 I think if there is any insurance company in Nigeria, NTD should be the first insurance company in Nigeria. And they should have the right as an EIP company to operate whatever they are producing. And since we signed the JOA in 1986, one of the clauses that is in there is for some of the fields to be transferred to NNPC so that NNPC can also learn to be operator. When we started with 10 oil blocks, we ended up by 2010 with only 3 oil blocks producing. So it was part of the desire of every NPC staff to also be in a position to produce oil as an operator. And all we are saying is, let that opportunity also be given to them, just like it's given to other companies. So it's not that NPC is trying to bulldoze other partners, but especially when you have more equity in the venture. You are also the only company that is not divested out of that as like you can share asset. We have 55% equity there. We are the only entity that is non-operator and also not divested. Others are divested. Naturally, you are supposed to be operator if all the rest are leaving. And that's what we are saying at that time. But we have even passed that level. Part of what we have also done on this cash court exit is to also ensure that another government doesn't come and bring back cash court. We are also heading towards IJB. And if Citizen can remember, we have been talking about this IJB that's been operating these companies as entities on their own. And the company is being the operator, not another entity within the entities to be the operator. Then we will be in a position not even bother about apprenticeship. The entities themselves will be the operators, they engage their staff, they sack their staff, they operate on their own mode and system processes and produce, deliver dividend to their shareholders. We have been asking for that one from year 2000 to date. But at the end of the day, part of this negotiation that ended up in December last year to exit cash flow is also to agree that within the next 3 years, we work as an industry to ensure that all the joint ventures are incorporated and they work as operators for their own fields. And therefore, we will not have that. So I think we are going close to where we are heading, where we wanted to be. That is have an effective, competitive industry where each company will be competing with themselves. If you remember, and some remember that here from OPTS, NBC is the only company that's not part of OPTS. Why? Because we are not seen as part of the business. We are seen as government agency. But it's a business, simple business of exploration and production. Produce oil and gas, sell it, and get money by shareholders. Now we are going to that area. The single most profitable IJV we have in this country is LNG. Nobody had any problem with government interference with LNG because it's an important company where the shareholders decide for everything. They don't take anything to the Executive Council or to NPC Bangor. The board will sit down, agree on the plan, business plan, produce results, and share dividend. And anybody in Nigeria knows how much dividend Nigeria delivered in the last 90 years. So it's very easy to go toward business in as long as the political will is not there, is there from the owner of the business to allow you to have. So I think that's why we're heading on that one. So I think our operatorship. We are now working very closely with our partners, all these companies that were getting the 45% from Shell or 40% from Shell. I think they can testify here that we are now working very closely together. And we have not seen the difference from having an IOC to operate a block and having an insurance company, a Nigerian company, whether it's MBDC or ND Western or Aret or whatever, to operate. We have seen the difference. And I can assure you that in the next 2-3 years, what Shell were producing in the 80s in the western area of Niger Delta will also be coming to be produced by Nigerian business companies led by NPDC. I think the other question on fiscals, and I want to assure you that for the commercial gas stamps, the minister announced yesterday that within 2 months that will be finalized. So we hope to make sure that before the end of April, the fiscal and the commercial stamps for PSC gas will be out and it will be seen. But we are being engaged all the companies in that discussion. So when it comes out, it will not be like IPID that can say we are not engagement. And for the fiscals as well, even yesterday there was a consultative forum between the ministry and all stakeholders to finalize it as well. The next step after that, the next step is just for us to now discuss, for the minister to discuss, the minister and council, and then we take this to the National Assembly. We have even had some discussion with the National Assembly in Akwa last week. So I think we're also going very fast. I believe the PID that took us 70 years now is almost close to being passed. And one of the key issues is fiscal. Of course, again, the objective of any fiscal term, any country in the world, is for it to be competitive enough to attract investors, but also good enough for the government to get something. So once we do that, and I think all the industry players are aligned on that, there will be a lot of challenges, a lot of shocks, but again, it's the best thing for the industry and for the country. Thank you very much.
My name is U-LifyTV. How are you today? My question is, I am an orphan. So, in a situation like this, what adaptation do to someone like me in terms of education? Because I lost my parents when I was younger, about 14 years after. And presently, I don't have a job that I'm doing. The job I do porter. I carry load for people at the pump stop, just to earn a living. It's a dirty job, but at the end of the day, I need to survive.
Okay, thank you very much. Personal note. Thank you. Please, question for our distinguished guest, and your question then.
My name is Oluwa Tosin. I work with the Oil Group. I want to be clear about what NNPC is doing as regards the electricity in the country, because you all will agree with me that how can we find more, how can we produce more without energy and without electricity? You've talked so much about the barrels and the gas, but how do we implement getting electricity to be able to help this country? That's the question.
Experts and energy company. The situation we are in today, we were in the same situation in the mid-80s, and we had a solution which was a margin. Today, you talked about ring-fencing exploration budget, which I want to expatiate. I wanted to expatiate more on how you're going to do that, but have we looked at what we did in the mid-80s to solve the same problem? Can we still apply it? Or is there any reason why we cannot consider margin to provide funds for exploration?
To ask a question based on what I do. We are into books, so when you say find more, and with the society we find ourselves trying to push books, you try to sell books, you see a lot of rejection. So I don't know, how do we, how can we find this more, the thing you're saying, how can people, how do we get more people interested in reading? That's just where I'm going.
Thank you very much. But please, may I just make a comment to the theme and substance of today's lecture, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Patrick Osu. I'm a partner at Jamobibiano KK.
My exploration began. There's an understanding that we have at least 36 million barrels of oil, which we hope that people can explore. Over the period of time, I think the latest find that I recall is ExxonMobil, which is a 1 billion barrel new find. And the idea is that the theme of this is we will continue to hope that there could be more finds, so that at least over the period of time, there could be some sort of continued prospecting and, of course, increased income. But my question is, what is NNPC itself doing? And if they have an idea of the oil companies and what they're hoping that they'll be able to do in terms of finding new prospects, because as long as we continue to explore only what we have, the potential is that we will only continue to have that sort of revenue revenue, we will only be able to generate that certain level of revenue. If we don't find more, we certainly would be able to get more revenue. So what's NNPC itself doing in that regard?
Okay, one more question. Greg. My name is Greg. I'm the president of the Shipowners Association of Nigeria, as well as the CEO of Stars Investment and Stars Marine. Find more, produce more. Finding more and producing more, you need the services of subcontractors. And one of them are shipowners, particularly upstream. When the prices of oil drastically dropped, NNPC directed through their bills IOCs to reduce production costs by 30%. The IOCs took advantage of that to engage service providers like the shipowners and made us, they negotiated pay rates down. In fact, they were sympathetic. They said if we were to carry out NNPC instruction, we'd be talking of 30% reduction, but they were hovering between 20, 22, 18%, depends on how relevant your facility is today. That meant that most of the providers are carrying huge debts because the revenue is no longer able to meet their commitments to their financial demands. It was okay to stay in that situation to support the effort of NNPC and the IOCs to stay afloat. But since then, prices of crude have crept up, and the negotiated low rates are still the same. Most of our members who are shipowners have their vessels tied up in the jetties because of the job, and those who are working are struggling to stay afloat. We try to engage the IOCs on reviewing rates primarily upwards to be commensurate with the increase that we're noticing in the industry. And they've always said that unless NNPC directs otherwise, the only instruction they have is 30%. What can you do to help us there?
Let me attempt to answer some questions. There are any additions my CEO is here. I can add more, particularly the questions regarding the costs. Let me start with the electricity. Of course, we all know the marriage between gas and power has been there for long. It creates a civil war. When first shared, then in those days, supply gas to power the first power plant at Afa. And since then, of course, gas to power has been on the increase. NNPC did not really come in until sometime, it was 1980, when we first directly tried to supply gas to power. And I must say, all these years up to previous 2 or 3 years ago, all those supplies to sustain power have been on basic levels. And you must agree with me, even if you carry a power plant and put it by the flare, you cannot get that gas cheap. Nor can you ever get it free. In other words, the players that provide the gas to power have to have some kind of incentives or motivations to produce more, and that has been lacking. And thank God today, one of those people who turn it around is on my left. To bring out things that can not only motivate the producers but also to rejig the relationship from baseline levels to commercial frameworks that will guide that operation. And behold, that has been working. But I must say here, because of the initial misalignment between the power industry and the gas sector, we just woke up and found power plants sprang up all over that never had any negotiated contract for gas supply. Nor were they near the gas sources. In other words, some of them were not even connected by the pipelines. That, you agree with me, will take some while, but we have been able to forge ahead. From a mere 2,000 megawatts, we have been able to sustain the industry up to 5,000 megawatts. As of February last year, until the problems of the Niger Delta began again between February and the end of last year. But thank God, some of the efforts have yielded fruits and we are back on track again. Today we are well over 4,000, approaching up to our 5,000 and beyond. So what is NNPC doing? 3 things. One is not to relent in repairs to be able to sustain production from the existing fields. 2, to bring in immediately those that have been knocked out for one reason or the other, all connected to the performance of the oil in itself. Because whatever happens to the oil invariably affects the gas, whether associated or non-associated. Non-associated has to have a point of evacuating the attendance. If that is not there, you just can't do anything but to shut down the gas plant. So that's number 2. Then number 3 is to continue on additional production, both the upstream and the midstream, by embarking on the pipelines to connect this grid, and then also ensure that we produce more. And for that reason, we have identified 7 key critical projects that will give us gas that will build up the supply of the domestic market from what it is today, about 1.5 billion standard cubic per day, to over 4 billion BCM per day, year 2020. And also, some of the things that we have done also is to look at what have been preventing us from developing this gas in good time and within budget. We realize that there will be benefits if you separate the midstream process from the upstream work. So, going forward, NNPC and JV partners will be limited to producing the gas up to the surface. And the treatment of that gas is free for any investor that will come in, including the JV partners if they are willing. In other words, we are trying to open up to make sure that participation comes in. NNPC could be part of the midstream if they choose to, but in no way should they come in as a dominant equity holder. We will have a minority holder there. And what we are trying to do is to unfold the midstream into the Borneo LNG model, where you have participation of willing investors. We believe that that will accelerate the production because we have a gap, deficit of gas that we must fill within the next few years. And it is only through that kind of aggressive effort that we will achieve that. And the Asanos gas production will be the first test case, which we believe that by June we should achieve FID on this model that I just described. So to answer you in short, we want to clear the gas deficit to power within the next few years and operate in a surplus mode thereafter. I'm not going to dwell into other challenges. I'm just going to talk about only gas to power, because the power itself has its own challenges, which may not be connected with the gas supply. We need, there's a question around exploration. Well, how can we ring-fence more money? And also, is connected to almost the last question too, on what are we doing to fund more? Let me just talk a little bit on it, but then I will ask Nancy or Oscar to expatiate. A lot of the problems that we've been having over the last few years in the structure that we operate with the James were unique. cash call. I always bring their own, government brings it on. And for the reasons which are obvious in the history, we have not been able to fund our government share. And cumulatively, we kept on piling the deficits. And once we are not able to fund the cost of operation, of course, the cost of exploration must also suffer. Because going forward, what you will be doing is just to struggle to be producing. In other words, maintaining asset management that will enable you to continue to produce. So exploration, of course, was the first line to suffer. And that's why we remain stagnant for a long time. We could not fund the operations, nor can we fund the exploration. And only last year we found a formula to exit that. And what is that led to the famous cash call exit, which Belgara you can expand on. But basically what that means is that we will find a way of paying all the arrears of the tune of about $6 to $7 billion, maintaining the same production and government take. That means that arrears will only be funded by incremental production spread over 5 years. In other words, we will continue as we are. But how do we continue as we are? We have to make that cash call a first line. We take our first call before we even give anybody, including government. And that has started 1st January of this year. I'm still here telling you that cash call of February has already been paid. And that is the way we see it going forward. And if once you sustain the cash call, which means you can now sustain the governmental programs and exploration programs that you may have along the line. It's the only way to bring back exploration appetite to the IOCs. But of course, on the other hand, NNPC itself, like I said in my GMG speech, we are also looking at the other basins, not only the Niger Delta, the Chad Basin, the Benue Trough, Bida, Anambra Basin. All these are going to be looked at, and I can assure you the 1 billion barrels reserve incremental per year is not something that cannot be achieved. The other ones are more personal. So rather than find more, is how would you read more? That I cannot help you there. Great, talk more about the shipments, of course. The IOCs can give you 1,000 reasons why they are not being able to increase cost. But you must agree with me with what I enumerated. There is no any player that will be talking about cost increase under this regime. The regime that we're just coming out of, low price of oil, cannot sustain higher cost of production. So, of course, they can tell you that senior partner is not willing, but the fact is that we are not willing. We are still not willing to increase costs. If you heard the speech on my GMD, we want to drive this cost down. So, what we will need from people like Greg, who are local participants, is how do we think out of the box, propel the